I'm going to show you how to construct a bar graph using the example from the slideshow about careers teenagers favor. So every good bar graph needs to, every graph needs to have their axes labeled, have a title. So we're going to add a title here, and we're going to call it Careers Teens Admire. All right, and we need our axes labeled. I already drew axes, and I cheated. I used the line tool in Paint because I can't draw a straight line to save my life. So in order for you to be able to actually read the graph, I cheated a bit. So we need axes labeled, and we need here. So we need labels here and here. So we're going to call this the number of students, and we're going to call this the careers. All right, so now the scales. Our x-axis, remember, is horizontal. Our y-axis is vertical. I'm going to list the 5 careers here. Starting with the doctor. You don't want to start all the way over on this because this point indicates 0. So doctor, and we want these equally spaced: scientist, military officer, lawyer, and athlete. All right, and now we want a scale here. If you had bigger data values here, if you had bigger classes or whatever, you would probably have to estimate the scale, but this is 1 to 6, so we can just do 1 to 6. So starting at what you would call 1. Now you want it equally spaced now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You don't want too much gap here, so I'm going to erase some of this axis, so that way there we can have this correct. So we knew that 6 students favor doctor, so I'm going to go ahead and draw a bar. See, can't draw a straight line to save my life. Gonna have to cheat. I'm going to use the square tool, but when you do this, you can do it on paper and fax it to me. Graph paper would probably be preferable, so you can just, go through the graphs, the little blocks on the paper, and it'll be okay. You can equally space it that way. But I'm using Paint, so I'm going to have to cheat a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a box at the doctor, and these boxes are going to need to be equally spaced, and there needs to be gaps between them. When we get into a histogram, it's like a bar graph, but there's going to be no gaps, and I'll show you that. Scientists, we had 5. So you want to make it about equal, and you want it to end at 5. Whoopsie, undo. Military officer, we also have 5, so we want to do the same thing. Okay, lawyers, we have 3. So starting at the 3-ish. So there's 3. Athlete, we have 1. So starting at the 1. And that is too high, so we just need to eyeball that. And there's your bar graph for careers teens admire. It has all the things of a good graph. The axes are labeled, number of students. We have an equally spaced scale. There's not too much gap at the top. Our x-axis is labeled, and as are our bars. If we were graphing multiple data, we would put a legend here, but we don't need to do that. So there you go, how to construct a bar graph. All right, So I'm going to show you now how to construct a bar graph in Microsoft Excel using our career information thing. So I've typed in the doctor, the scientist, the military officer, the lawyer, the athlete, and my frequency distribution. I'm going to go up here to Insert, and I'm going to click on Charts right here in this area. You've got column, line, pie, bar, area, scatter, other charts. We don't need any of these. We just need the column. The column and the bar are the same graph. It's just bar graphs. If you see, they're horizontal in Excel, whereas what we traditionally think is bar graphs are these column graphs. They call them cluster columns. The only ones you're going to be working with are right here. Okay, as you'll see in later lessons, this is all known as chart junk. We don't need any of this. This is just convoluted crap. So let's just click on the first one, which is the clustered column. And didn't do anything. So we need to select data. So we're going to click select data. And chart data range, I need to click this and just select that. Enter. Alrighty. So now we have all of this. We're going to rename this. Will you let me do it? No. Well, let me redo it till later. Press OK. Voila, we have our chart. The first time I actually did this, it just automatically was intuitive which data to go to. Sometimes that will happen. But as you can see right here, we have a bar graph, but it's not complete. We don't have our y-axis labeled. We don't have our x-axis labeled. And there's no title. I can change all the colors up here. I can make them shaded. I can make them gradients. But, you know, that's really unnecessary. But, I mean, it's still simple enough to where you can read it. I can make it black. But again, all unnecessary. Right there. There's a chart. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do, we need to label our axes. So we're going to click up here in Chart Tools where it says Layout. Okay. I'm going to go to Chart Title. I have three options. I'm going to go above Chart. Careers, teens admire. Okay, we're done. Now let's go to, staying on this menu, let's go to axis titles. Primary horizontal axis title, title below axis. We want to call that the careers. This label is not necessary really in this graph, but I want you to get in the good habit of labeling your bottom axis. I can't speak. And let's go back to axis titles and go to primary vertical axis title. You can rotate the title. You can make a vertical title or a horizontal title. I'm going with the vertical title. And I'm going to go ahead and call that the number of students. And instead of typing out number, because that's going to look all gross, we're just going to say number of students. We can change all of this later. Let's see. Do we need a legend? We don't need a legend because we're only comparing one set of data. If we were comparing multiple sets of data, we would need a legend. So we're going to turn off the legend. See if data labels. We need data labels, so we're just going to, we have those. We don't need those. Data table, we have the data table, but this is an additional data table that you don't need. Axes, we don't need those. We have them. Grid lines, we don't need. Plot area, we're showing the plot area, and we are done.